chapter 18 is where we're going to spend today. And there are, as you have found with all of these chapters, there are so many things that we could pull from a chapter in light of it being hunting, and the majority of you really have a desire to leave this building and get back out in the woods. I have tried very hard in my studying to put the majority of this into Bible study tonight, so that I don't keep you here when the big one is waiting for you in the woods. That being said, if you want to come back to Bible study tonight, we'll look at a lot more. Revelation chapter 18, a dynamic theme or emotion in this chapter is disappointment. Before moving to Nebraska and leaving my family, I was actually a big hunter too. I was telling Liz the other day, I lived for hunting. I so enjoyed it. My dad is a pastor, and I don't know that he appreciated this, but I would even go hunting Sunday morning, and I would come to a church, or come to our church worship service 5 minutes before it started. But I did the whole face paint thing, so I'm just totally geared up for for war, and I stayed just long enough to do the worship service, and then I'm back out in the woods, and then I would stay. So you guys that's great to see you. But in all my hunting opener, I never shot a deer opening morning, and so I would come to these ever. So that feeling of disappointment that is in this room this morning, I know that, and that is a feeling that you're going to see in Revelation chapter 18. A lot of things in life leave us disappointed. That's the world we live in. I've been a Minnesota Vikings fan for 16 years, and the predominant feeling being a Minnesota Viking fan is one of disappointment. Life is full of things like, I was thinking about this, like Minnesota Vikings. Things that, at the beginning, that hold out so much promise. We were 5-1 at the beginning of the year. Okay, I'll get off the Vikings thing in a second. There was so much promise, and then season goes and things change, and all of a sudden what once held out promise now leaves us a bit disappointed. I've told this before, but the Hamers have literally watched me eat their living room carpet during disappointing Viking events. Things that hold out promise in the beginning, and all of you have things like that. Okay, that's a goofy one, but you all have things like that. Things at one point in life that held out so much promise and hope, and then left you disappointed in the aftermath. I was thinking of my first grade April Fools. It was my first time going to school, because I'm in first grade. We had a wonderful Christian school in our community. So I was going to this Christian school, and my mom played an April Fool's joke on me. I've always enjoyed eating a lot, and so in my lunch, she packed all of my food was clay, and like Play-Doh, and she made me a cheeseburger made out of Play-Doh, and it looked like a cheeseburger, and she did all that kind of thing. Well, she gave my teacher some pizza for me, and said, wait till Jeremiah opens his lunch, and then reads the April Fool's joke, and then give him his pizza. Well, so we sat down for lunch, and I just, I looked so forward to lunch, it's just in your mind for several periods, and you get to lunch, and you open your lunchbox to see what it is that, Mom had packed you with that day, treats and whatever, and I look, and there's this Play-Doh stuff, and then the note. And, April Fools, love you, Mom. And my teacher forgot all about me. And so this little first grade boy, I'm watching all these other kids eat their, lunches, and I got a lunchbox full of Play-Doh, And, I was disappointed. And angry was in there a little bit. Things like, the presidential election last Tuesday. I think many of us went to bed Tuesday night feeling disappointed. Hurricane Sandy. Okay, so now we're switching in. This is real life now. Hurricane Sandy is leaving a lot of folks very, very disappointed. Revelation chapter 18 is a record of a day when a whole host of folks find themselves extremely disappointed. In chapter 18, you see in verse 1, there's another angel that enters into this epic drama of Revelation, and he takes John on a tour of the end of the world as we know it. Revelation 18 is the very end of the world as we know it. And in this final devastating chapter, the predominant feeling is extreme disappointment. And what I want to do this morning is I want to look at Revelation 18. I want to look at what causes this kind of a disappointment that we see in Revelation 18. And see what we can do to avoid being among the folks that find themselves with this emotion in the end. Revelation 18, that's my goal. Why are they disappointed? They're very disappointed. How do we not be among that group when the end of the world reaches its close? After these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a habitation of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. First of all, in case you've forgotten or you weren't here last week, Babylon, ancient Babylon, the city, was the birthplace of collaborated evil. Babylon was the birthplace of collaborated evil. People came together and they started this man-centered worldview. Man is the most important, and that was the foundation of ancient Babylon. It was where man came together to embrace a worldview that exalted man as God and didn't exalt God at all. And then, so that in the Old Testament, like in Isaiah 13, Isaiah 14, other minor prophets, they kept foretelling, one day this ancient city is going to be destroyed. Utterly destroyed. God is going to wipe it off the map, and it is never going to be inhabited again. Those prophecies all came true. In 275 BC, why don't we actually turn to one of these again? It's worth it. Isaiah 13. Turn back in your Bible if you would. Isaiah chapter 13. Verse 19. It says, in Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. From a human standpoint, Babylon was a beautiful, beautiful place. Glorious place. Powerful place. Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. The beauty of the Chaldeans' pride will be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, nor will it be settled from generation to generation. And it goes on to talk about wild beasts making their home there. That came true. Babylon was leveled 275 BC, and ever since then it was an unpopulated ruin. God's prophecy came true. So this isn't a real Babylon city that you see in Revelation 18, because Babylon doesn't exist. Old prophecies came true. What we see in Revelation 18 is Babylon as symbolic of a world system, again, that puts man at the center of life. Okay, and God says, just like that old real city of Babylon was going to be destroyed, so this worldview that is exactly like the old worldview of Babylon is going to be laid waste once again. And that is what we see happening in Revelation 18. The angel said in verse 2, Babylon the Great is fallen. Verse 3, for all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Remember, Babylon was linked to a harlot back in the last chapter. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. Just as a harlot plays on the lusts of her patrons to draw them in. That's how a harlot gets her money. A prostitute gets her money. She plays on the lusts of the man to draw him in. So this Antichrist worldview in Revelation 18 is playing on the lusts of the masses. Their lust for power, lust for luxury, lust for wealth, to draw them into a relationship with her, that world system. Verse 4. So verse 3, if you think of it, is like a harlot scene. They've committed fornication there. Verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people." Okay, again, what does that sound like in light of verse 3? "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues." This is the plea of God for His people to come out of this brothel of sin and come back into a relationship with Him. He says, "Come out of her." John 15, He says, "Abide in me." Come out of her, abide in me. You see this intimate relationship in two different ways here. Verses 5 through 8. "For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix for her double. In the measure that she has glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in that same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen. I am no widow. I will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her." Something that I want to address here quick is a huge question. Well, you type it in on the internet, and it's a huge question. Does God ever cause bad things to happen? Does God ever cause bad things to happen? What is going on in Revelation right now is a bad thing. Maybe. Does God ever cause bad things to happen? If He is a loving God, I'm going to kind of build up this. If He is a loving God, which the Bible says over and over, 1 John 4:8, God is what? God is love. That's who He is. God is love. Jeremiah 31:3, He says, "I have loved you with an everlasting love." It has no beginning, it has no end. I've loved you with an everlasting love. John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son." So if God is a loving God, then surely He doesn't cause bad things to happen, like Hurricane Sandy. Did God cause Hurricane Sandy? What about the election outcome? Okay, now maybe some of you, I don't know where we're at, and I know this part of Nebraska is very diversified when it comes to this, so maybe you're not tracking with me here. If you view the election as a bad outcome, okay, then this is the question. Did God cause that? Did God cause the election? Does God cause, say, cancer, for example? There's a good one. Does God cause cancer? Is God causing what is going on here in Revelation chapter 18? Do any of these connect to one another? If God is love, then I'm looking at Revelation 18. Here's maybe one of you. You're thinking this. If God is love, then this must just be the consequences of our sinful choices that He is allowing for us to endure. God isn't causing Revelation 18 to happen. He is allowing it to happen as a consequence to choices that we have made, right? Mom and Dad used to say, if you want to have a relationship, you're talking about the sex talk, you want to do that with Say, for example, somebody that's not your wife, it is very possible that you will acquire a disease of some kind, okay? Now, that is a consequence of a choice you made, okay? You did this, that's the consequence. And isn't that what God is doing here? Because look what it says, verse 4. I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive her plagues." Well, that's what God's saying. Get out of this relationship or this worldview that puts people at the center. Get out of that so that you don't get a spiritual disease from that harlot relationship. Is that what is going on here? God, a loving God, doesn't cause bad things to happen, but He'll sure allow it for one reason, as a consequence of a poor choice you've made. Is that the way it is? In Revelation 18, yes, the plagues throughout Revelation are a consequence brought on by sinful people making selfish choices. But this is huge. God is not merely a bystander as this is going on. Verse 8. Therefore her plagues, this spiritual disease, will come in one day. Death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord who judges her. God is not just allowing what is going on in Revelation 18, He is causing it. Folks, let me tell you what, this side of Almighty God doesn't appeal to our emotional state of mind at all. Does a good and loving God cause bad things to happen? If we say yes biblically, that doesn't draw us. We don't like that. Our hair starts to stand up, maybe red flags come up. That's a theology that we don't really want to get into because it doesn't make sense, right? At least not initially. I'll read you some verses here. Why don't you just write them down so we don't have to spend too much time here. Here's what the Bible says. Isaiah 45, verses 3 through 7. The beginning of this passage, God is saying to His people, "I will give you the treasures and the hidden riches of the secret places, that you may know that I am the Lord." This is good stuff. Who call you by name, I am the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and for Israel my elect, I have called you by your name. I have named you, though you have not known me. I am the Lord, and there is no other. There is no God beside me. This is beautiful right now. God is saying, I admit there is nobody else like me. I love you. I've called you. You're my elect. I am God. Nobody else is there. It goes down in verse 6. There is none beside me. I am the Lord. There is no other. But then there's a very, very huge phrase in verse 7. God is still talking. He says this, Isaiah 45, verse 7. I form the light, and I create darkness. I make peace, and I create calamity. I, the Lord, do all of these things. I make light, I make darkness. I create peace, I also create. That's what it says there. I create calamity. I, the Lord, do all these things. Joshua 23, same thing. 1 Kings chapter 9, same thing. Genesis 45. Remember Joseph and his brothers? His brothers hated Joseph. They put him in a pit, and then they were going to leave him there to starve, and they thought better of it. There was a caravan going to Egypt. They said, why don't we sell Joseph to Egypt? And so they had this idea. They sold Joseph into Egypt. There's a bad thing going on in Joseph's life, right? A bad thing for Joseph. He gets sold to Egypt. At least it feels like it for Joseph. Years later, his brothers come to Egypt. Joseph says, hey, guess what? Things have changed lately, and now I'm the king of Egypt. And the brothers initially are in a state of panic, and Joseph says, you know, why don't you turn there quick to this one. Genesis 45. Listen to how Joseph responds. Genesis chapter 45, verse 5, Joseph says, "But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." Don't be angry that you sold me, because guess what? God sent me here. Joseph attributes that bad thing that happened in his life as God's work. You move down to verse 7. "And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Our line of thinking is this, at least this is my line at one point. If God causes bad things to happen, then He cannot be good. That makes sense to us, right? If God causes, that's what I want to underline this morning, not allows, causes. If God causes bad things to happen, then how can He be good? Luke 18:19, Jesus said there's only one who is good, and that is God. Before we can affirm or deny the truth of a statement like that, we need to define what it means for something to be bad. Okay, this is kind of where we're going to focus the end of our time this morning. What is bad? Is pain bad? Say if Carissa was to come up here and kick me in the shin, that would cause me pain. Would I consider her a bad person? Depends on her motivation. If she came up and kicked me in the shin just to get a giggle out of it, then I might not dub her as a warm-hearted person. If there's a giant poisonous spider crawling up my leg and she kicks me in the shin, that will cause me pain, but I will probably write her a thank you note at the end of the day. Did she cause pain? Yes. Is she a good person? Yes. Because the pain she caused was for my ultimate good. Who caused the pain? Did she just allow pain to happen? No. She kicked me in the shin. I'm getting worked up over this. It didn't even happen. Causes pain. She caused it. Is she bad? No. Might have saved my leg. My life. Who knows? Spankings. Okay, this is another one that we can relate to really easy. Growing up, man, my brothers and I, we fought those things. And we thought my parents would never know when we were stuffing pillows down the back of our pants, right? And I'm not even kidding. We were that bright. We stuck pillows down the back of our pants thinking Mom and Dad, you know, soften the blow. My parents would use they had their special spoon. And we would hide that spoon. And we avoided spankings at all costs. No joke. Later I became an adult and I went with my dad and I said, "Dad, thanks for spanking me when I was growing up. Thanks for doing that." Hebrews chapter 12 verse 11 says that no discipline is a good time while it's going on. But later it yields a productive harvest in your life to those who have been trained by it. Hebrews chapter 12 verse 11. Okay, let me get deep real quick for a second. What about cancer? Okay, so you're tracking with me so far. God will discipline. I get that because I've been a dad or I've been a mom or whatever. I get discipline. God causes pain sometimes to produce something good in the end. Or maybe God will kick us in the shin sometimes because of something that's negatively going to affect our life. But now what about things that get really personal, like say cancer? Does God cause cancer? My cousin, or what would you call it, cousin-in-law? Liz's cousin Nate is going through cancer. It's been a long season of cancer for him. He's a little bit older than me. He was in the military, loved what he did, was good at what he did. I mean, this is a guy, you look at him and he looks like an athlete. I haven't asked permission to share his story, so I won't. But heartbreaking. I read his blog this past week. He's blogging his cancer. And I want to read you what he said. This is part of it. He said he was asking for prayer as he was going for surgery tomorrow. He says this: "Your prayers are so vital!" Exclamation point. Sure, they keep my spirits high, but more importantly, God hears them and He does not ignore us. Many times, our circumstances give us cause to think or even believe that He has ignored us. But regardless of how we feel about God, I know Jesus is good and faithful. He has never left me through 6 bouts of cancer and plenty of disappointment. And He won't leave me tomorrow during surgery, even if the results aren't ideal. Through cancer, God has tugged at my heart and reminded me what matters. He said, "Did God cause my cancer?" Even ask that. Here's our response: I don't really know, and I don't really care. The point is, God used it for good because I can't deny His presence in my life. And that was an answer to the prayers of my parents that they had for me years before. That God would be a presence in my life. Did God cause my cancer? You say, I don't know. I don't care. The point is, God is using it. Did God cause Nate's cancer? Man, for many of us, that's a repulsive question to even engage. We don't even like to engage a question like that. But God, surely a good God would not cause something that has the potential of taking somebody's life like this. And then we forget, man, that's the center of our book. Is God sent Jesus. Cancer may or may not take my cousin's life. There was no doubt that the cross was going to take Jesus' life. In Isaiah, God says it was His pleasure to do that to His Son. Not just to allow it, but to cause it to happen, so that in His shedding of blood we might have an open door into eternity if we receive what Jesus did. Does God cause bad things to happen? How you answer that question depends on what you consider to be supremely good. Okay, let's go back to Revelation 18. I want to answer this question. Things that disappoint us, man. Hurricane Sandy, that's disappointing. Cancer, that's disappointing. The election, not going to be honest, that's disappointing. Is God good? Is God causing bad things to happen? That depends on what you consider to be supremely good. In Revelation 18, we're just going to read through verse 19 and we'll finish the chapter tonight. Look at what the people here are considering to be good. Okay? What they're holding on to. What matters to them. And then you're going to see how they answer this question. Verse 9, the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously, they will weep and lament for her, which is Babylon, this world system that has just collapsed, when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour her judgment is come. That's the kings. Verse 11, and the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Then it goes on to list all their merchandises through verse 13. Verse 14, and the fruit that your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. And they're weeping again. Verse 17, and then there's another group of people. In 1 hour such great riches came to nothing, and every shipmaster and all that traveled by ship and sailors and as many as trade on the sea, they stood at a distance and they cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what is like that great city? And they threw dust on their heads and they cried out, weeping and wailing and saying, alas, alas, the great city, in which all her who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Was God causing bad things to happen? They would say yes, because God is taking away everything in their life that they deem as good. Wealth, luxury, power. It's all taken away. Is that bad? They would sure answer yes. When your heart, get this. Please get this. When your heart is focused on temporary things, then it would be easy to come to a conclusion that God causes bad things to happen. But like Nate, my cousin, like the Apostle Paul, like Joseph, who got sold to Egypt, like David Livingstone, who was a missionary, when your heart is focused on eternity, then you can look at Hurricane Sandy's and President Obama's and say with confidence, God is working all things. Here's what you got to remember about all things. God is working all things. Things that I perceive to be negative and things that I perceive to be positive. I see Hurricane Sandy as negative, or this presidential election is negative. It doesn't matter how I see it. God is calling all things, however I view it, together for good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Though it may take shin kicking and bottom spanking and 6 bouts of cancer, Jeremiah 29:11 says God has a plan for your life to give you a beautiful future. If the only truly, eternally good thing in the world is God, then whatever it takes to make sure you don't miss out on Him is a blessing regardless of pain or hurt in the process. Let me read that again. If the only truly, eternally good thing in the world is God, then whatever it takes to make sure you don't miss out on Him is the best blessing that you could have ever received. Is Nate's cancer a bad thing? You know what he says? No. It's the best thing that could happen to me because it got my heart in Jesus. Does God cause bad things? Well, if God did cause Nate's cancer and we don't know, God is in the Old Testament and the New Testament, He's saying, I bring light and I bring calamity. Is there a reason to think? I say yes. But you know why? Because that Nate's cancer, what's the worst it could do? It could take his life and usher him into an eternity in heaven because he knows Jesus. That's the worst it could do. Is that a bad thing? No, sir. When you are focused on temporary things, then you might say God causes bad things to happen all the time. When you're focused on God, then He is always, only working good for you, regardless of how it feels. The kings were disappointed because they held on to luxury. The merchants were disappointed because they were holding on to stuff. The sea traders were disappointed because they were holding on to wealth. In 1 hour, it was all taken away. They had built everything on this Babylon, and now Babylon was totally destroyed. Look at me. Man. Now we're going to save that for tonight. What we're going to find tonight, though, is that the things that were taken away weren't bad things in and of themselves. You see that in verses 20 through 24. You also see that in 9 through 19. The things that were taken away weren't bad. They had just replaced God. You're going to see light taken away. You're going to see marriage taken away. You're going to see music taken away. And God is the creator of all these things. They had just replaced God. And so God is taking away, leaving them disappointed because what they wanted most is now gone. Folks, be careful what you hold on to too tightly. Okay? Be careful what you hold on to tightly. Your marriage is a gift from God. Follow me through. Your marriage is a gift from God, but if you exalt your spouse over God, it just may be He will take her or him away from you to get your attention. Your grandkids are a gift from God, but if they replace your focus, if your focus becomes your kids or your grandkids or your job or the music or the pastor or whatever it is, if anything here that may be good takes precedent over God, what we see in Revelation 18, He is not, it is not an unfamiliar scene for God to take those things away. Two blatant reasons why God causes destruction in Revelation 18. The first is to get the attention of His people. And that's an act of mercy. Right? You see that in verse 4. Come out of her, my people. That's an act of mercy. To get your attention, God causes destruction. That's one reason that's going on in Revelation 18. The second is to destroy something that is totally corrupt. And that's an act of purification and an act of justice. Just like God did with Sodom and Gomorrah. Totally destroyed it. His people came out first. And then, just like the flood, God totally destroyed something that was... How come I didn't eat apples on the ark? Anybody know?
Came in pairs.
It only came in pairs. Okay. How many people entered the ark before Noah? 3, as it says, and Noah went forth. God did that with the flood. God did that with Babylon. So God is doing in Revelation 18, and I wonder if that's not... Where does America fit into that today? You know? Is God destroying something? And this isn't just my opinion, guys. I mean, you look at the news. We're collapsing in on ourselves. Morally, financially, economically, spiritually. I mean, you name it. We're just... Is God destroying something that's totally corrupt? You read Revelation 18, He said their sins have reached to heaven. Or is He maybe trying to wake up a people? I don't know. I want to close with if we can get it up there. This is a song by one of Liz's and my favorite musicians. I'm not going to play it this morning because I think some of you would leave. But we will play it tonight. This guy is, he's about my age. He grew up in Texas. He was in a massive car wreck. And in his car wreck, God got a hold of his life. And now he lives in Atlanta. And he is a rapper. He takes the gospel of Jesus through his songs to juvenile detention centers and ministers in the worst cities statistically in America. But now, you're gonna see this in his lyrics. John Piper is my favorite preacher, aside from my dad, in case you... And John Piper and Lecrae are super close friends. In fact, the video I'm going to show tonight, John Piper produced it. You see somebody that's from a Baptist church, an older preacher, and he is behind this gentleman named Lecrae 100%. And you're going to see this. This title of the song is Don't Waste Your Life. And I think it goes along exactly. Kings and merchants and ship masters, they wasted their lives on things when the only thing that's going to last for eternity is Jesus. Says, I know a lot of people out there scared they're going to die. couple of them thinking they'll be living in the sky. And while I'm here living, man, I got to ask why. What am I here for? I got to figure out, waste my life? No. I got to make it count. If Christ is real, then what am I going to do about everything in Luke 12:15 down to 21? You really ought to go and check it out. Paul said, if Christ ain't resurrected, we wasted our lives. Well, that implies that our life is built around Jesus being alive. Every day I'm living trying to show the world why Christ is more than anything you'll ever try. Better than pretty women and sinning and living to get a minute of any woman the minute you admire. It ain't no lie. He created us for Him. And out of the dust He made us for Him. Elects us and saves us for Him. Jesus comes and raises us for Him. Magnify the Father. Why would you bother with something lesser? He made us, check it out, so we could bless Him. To the world we confess Him. He resurrects Him, so I know I got life. Matter of fact, even better, man, I know I got Christ. If you don't see His ways and my days and my nights, you can hit my brakes, you can stop my lights. Man, I lost my rights. I lost my life. Forget the money, the cars. Toss that ice. It's lingo for like jewelry, in case you weren't there. The cost is Christ, and they can never offer me anything in the world that would cost that price. And the chorus is, don't waste your life. And then the last verse I want to share with you. Suffer? You suffering? Yeah. Do it for Christ. You're trying to figure out what to do with your life. You make a lot of money. I hope you're doing it right, because the money is God's. You better steward it right and stay focused. And if you ain't got no ride, your life ain't wrapped up in what you drive, clothes you wear, the job you work, the color of your skin. Nah, we Christian first. People are going to be living for a job, they make a little money, start living for a car, get them a wife, a house, kids, and a dog. When they retire, living high on the hog. But guess what? They didn't ever really live at all. To live is Christ. And that's Paul. A call to die is gain. So for Christ, we give it all. He's the treasure you never find at a mall. Your money, your singleness, your marriage, your talent, your time, they were loaned to you to show the world Christ is divine. That's why it's Christ, am I right? That's why it's Christ all the time. So Christ all the time. My whole world is built around Him. He's the life of my lives. I refuse to waste my life. He's too true to chase that ice. Here's my gifts. Here's my time, because I'm constantly trying to be used to praise the Christ. If He's truly raised to life, then this news to change your life. And by His grace, you can put your faith in a place that rules your days and nights. Man, I don't want to waste my life and be disappointed in the end. This one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Father in heaven, thank You for the gospel, where You caused pain that we cannot imagine to be poured out on Your Son Jesus, so that through His death and resurrection we might have life. And Father, I thank You for the cancer that You've given Nate to draw his heart close to You, so that maybe his life here won't be everything he dreamed, but now he has eternity in heaven, because You used cancer to bring him to Yourself. Father, I thank You for the car wreck that brought this Christian rapper to Jesus, so that he can minister to people in the prisons and detention centers. I thank You for the disease that caused John Piper not to graduate from his school, so that You might call him to be a pastor. Father, we don't know, and maybe we'll never know this side of heaven, why You not only allow but cause. As You create light, You create darkness, You create peace, and You create calamity. We don't always know why You cause things that we seem to be bad. But we know that You are only, always, ever working for our good, to those who love You and are called according to Your purpose. Thank You for being a God obsessed with our eternal soul, far more than our temporary life. And we praise You for that in Jesus' name. When we all get to heaven, what a day, man, of rejoicing that's going to be.
while we walk the pilgrim pathway. Clouds will overspread the sky, but when traveling days are over, not a shadow by side. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. So let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of Him in glory, will the toils of life repay. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Onward to the right.